Hey everyone, welcome back to Mind Unscripted. I'm Hafsa, your host, and I'm super excited to be here with you today. If you're new, welcome to our community. And if you've been around since the intro episode, thank you so much for sticking with me. Today, we're diving into a topic that I think a lot of us can relate to: anxiety. It's a word that gets thrown out a lot, especially among young people. But what does it actually mean? And more importantly, how do we deal with it? Anxiety is something I know all too well. I've been there. Those nights when you can't sleep, that overwhelming feeling when you're about to give a presentation in class, or even just the unease that creeps up on you for no reason at all. We all have different experiences with anxiety. But I want to share some insights, tips, and personal experiences today that I hope can help you feel a little less alone and a lot more empowered. So let's start with what anxiety actually is. Anxiety, in its simplest form, is our body's natural response to stress. It's that feeling of fear or apprehension about what's to come. Think of it like an alarm system, a mechanism that's hardwired into us to keep us safe. It's totally normal to feel anxious before a big event, like a test or a presentation. But sometimes, this alarm system gets a little too sensitive and starts going off even when there's no immediate danger. That's when anxiety can start to interfere with our daily lives. And that's the thing, anxiety can look different for everyone. For some, it's a racing heart. For others, it's feeling nauseous or having a constant sense of worry. Now, anxiety isn't just all in your head, it's a real physical thing. When you're anxious, your body releases stress hormones like adrenaline and cortisol, which can cause all sorts of symptoms like sweating, dizziness, or even chest pain. It can be really scary, but understanding what's happening in your body can help you feel a little more in control. So, how do we deal with anxiety? It's different for everyone, but I'm gonna share a few strategies that have worked for me and that I've learned from mental health professionals, friends, and just by living life. The first thing I want to talk about is grounding techniques. When anxiety hits, it can feel like you're lost in your thoughts or that you're spiraling out of control. Grounding is about bringing yourself back to the present moment. One simple technique is the 5-4-3-2-1 method. You start by naming 5 things you can see, 4 things you can touch, 3 things you can hear, 2 things you can smell, and 1 thing you can taste. It might sound a little bit silly, but it really works. It forces your brain to focus on something other than the anxiety about what's to come. Let's try it out together right now. I'll start with naming 5 things I can see around me right now. I can see my backpack. I'm on my bed, so I can see my blanket. I can see my microphone that I'm recording on. I can see my water bottle. I think that's 4. I can see my earbuds. And next, I'll list 4 things I can touch. So I'm touching my microphone right now. I can touch my blanket. Okay, you know what? I'm gonna try to name different things than what I listed for what I can see. I can touch the clothes that I have on right now. I can touch my table. I can touch the wall. And I am touching these things as I'm saying them, just so you know, I'm distracting my mind like completely. I can touch my shoulders. I think that was 4. Next, 3 things I can hear. I can hear the cars outside. I can hear my cats. And I just hear moving traffic. I can also hear myself speaking, I guess. And then 2 things I can smell. I smell cat food. And I also smell chocolate milk. And lastly, 1 thing I can taste. So I just had chocolate milk, so I can taste the chocolate milk. And, okay. Moving on, like you guys can try this out either with me while I was doing it, or you can like pause it right now and try it out too. Or I really suggest like writing down what the 5-4-3-2-1 stands for, at least so that you can practice it a few times, and then until you get the hang of it, until you know what the 5 means and what the 4 means, so that you can really practice it when you're in a stressful situation. Because trust me, when anxiety hits, You don't want to be like thinking about, oh wait, do I list 5 things I can hear or 5 things I can see? Like, if you practice it a few times beforehand, when you're actually anxious and when you're really like spiraling out of control, it just clicks like second nature. And that's what we want to get to. We want to, when we're feeling like symptoms of anxiety, we want to immediately go to these coping mechanisms to kind of get ourselves through it. Another technique I love is deep breathing. I know, everyone says to take deep breaths when you're anxious, but there's actually some science behind it. When you're anxious, your breathing becomes shallow, which can make you feel even more panicked. So it just kind of like makes your anxiety spiral out of control because your breathing is getting out of control, and then it sends your body more alerts that you're not safe, and then your anxiety just keeps getting worse. So when you're anxious, taking deep slow breaths can really help calm your nervous system. It's kind of like resetting your nervous systems to tell your brain that, okay, you're okay, you'll be fine, and it kind of just helps you get through the moment of like panic. Try breathing in for 4 counts, holding for 4 counts, and then breathing out for 4 counts. Do this a few times and you'll likely start to feel a bit calmer. So let's try a couple breaths together. I'll count for you and you can follow along and match your breathing. So breathe in for 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold it for 4, 3, 2, 1. And then let go. 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's do it again. Breathe in. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold it for 4, 3, 2, 1. And let go for 1, 2, 3, 4. One more time. Breathe in. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold it. 4, 3, 2, 1. And let go. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. You can practice this too so that like when anxiety hits, you're able to just immediately get into that mode of like slower, deeper breathing. But what if you're someone who feels anxious all the time, not just in certain situations? That's where lifestyle changes can really make a difference. Exercise is one of the most effective ways to reduce anxiety. You don't have to run a marathon or spend hours at the gym. Even a short walk can help. When you exercise, your body releases endorphins, which are like natural mood boosters. And it's not just about the chemicals. Moving your body can help you feel more grounded and less stuck in your head because you're physically pushing your body. So your mind kind of just like, your thoughts are just kind of pushed to the back of your head. So you're focused more on the physical activity that you're doing. Then there's sleep. I know this is easier said than done, especially if anxiety is keeping you up at night, but sleep is crucial. Try to establish a bedtime routine that helps you wind down. Maybe it's reading a book, meditating, or practicing some gentle stretches. Avoid screens for at least an hour before bed because the blue light can interfere with your sleep hormones. And honestly, don't be afraid to ask for help if sleep is something you're really struggling with. I also want to touch on the power of just talking about it. When I first started experiencing anxiety, I didn't want to talk to anyone about it. I was embarrassed and I thought no one would understand. Like, even I genuinely didn't understand it. But when I finally opened up to a friend, it felt like a weight had been lifted. Just knowing someone else is going through something similar made me feel less alone. And just knowing someone out there understood what I was feeling and I wasn't just a crazy person stuck in my head made me feel a lot less alone. And that feeling of support and that feeling that you're not crazy for feeling your feelings just gives you that little motivation to actually work on getting through it. So if you're feeling anxious, please talk to someone, whether it's a friend, a family member, or a mental health professional. You don't have to go through this alone. And speaking of professionals, therapy can be a game changer. I know there's still a lot of stigma around seeing a therapist, but it's so important to take care of your mental health. Therapy doesn't have to be scary. It's just a space where you can talk about what you're going through and learn new ways to cope. There are also different types of therapy, like cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, which is specifically designed to help with anxiety. I also want to share a bit of my own journey with social anxiety specifically, because trust me, I've been where some of you might be right now. For a long time, I struggled with extreme social anxiety, especially when it came to speaking in class or speaking in front of groups, like when doing presentations. I remember in school, the thought of presentations in class would send my heart racing. The second we were assigned a presentation, I would be like, "Oh my god, no." My palms would get sweaty. Whenever I'm up in front of the class, my palms would get sweaty, and I'd rehearse what I wanted to say over and over and over and over in my head, and then my entire body would just be trembling so much you could hear my flashcards moving. Like, I understand my hands shaking a little bit because I'm nervous, but I would feel my legs moving, my knees shaking, and like my hands would be shaking so much if I had flashcards up there. You could hear my flashcards like whipping against the wind. That's how much I would be shaking. And even after I rehearsed so much the night before because I was so stressed out about it, I would still go and forget everything. Everything that I prepared, I would forget everything I had to say, everything I had written on my flashcards. I would literally forget how to read. I would stumble on my words. And forget about speaking to a bigger group. That felt like climbing Mount Everest. Things got even more intense when I had to do like formal presentations in like high school where they were worth a lot of your mark. I'd stand there feeling like every eye was on me and my mind would just go blank. I'd fumble through my words, and afterward, I'd replay every moment. I'd replay every second of that presentation and just hate myself for it. I would convince myself I had embarrassed myself completely and no one would want to speak to me again and everyone's going to talk about it and everyone thinks I'm a fool. And it felt like I would never get over it. And the idea of speaking publicly was something I just accepted I would always dread. But here's the thing. I didn't want that fear to control my life. I wanted to be able to express myself, to share my thoughts, to connect with others. Yes, I'm an introvert, but I still wanted to be able to talk to people. So I decided to take small steps, even when it felt terrifying. I started by practicing in front of a mirror. I started by just speaking to myself, practicing in front of a mirror, even if it was really awkward. Then I'd record myself on my phone just to get used to hearing my voice. It was awkward at first, but it helped. Eventually, I tried engaging myself more in class conversations where it wasn't really like a presentation or anything. It was just like a discussion, group conversations and stuff like that. I would just try like engaging myself more in those conversations. And then slowly I got more comfortable speaking to the class after practicing with the class. Like obviously at first I was still really anxious about it and afterward I would still think about every moment and I would be like, "Oh, why did I say that?" But slowly and eventually I stopped caring about it because I got more used to speaking more, and you're really, when you're speaking to people all the time, you really don't remember every single thing you said. And little by little I exposed myself to situations that made me uncomfortable. And guess what? I survived every single time. Surprise! I also worked hard on challenging my own thoughts. Instead of letting my mind run wild with all the ways I could fail, I tried to focus on what could go right. I tell myself, "You've got something valuable to share. You know what you're talking about. You've prepared enough. You've practiced all of this. You know what you're gonna say. You know all of this stuff and people want to hear from you." It wasn't easy, and it took a lot of repetition, but over time, I started to believe it. And here's the crazy part. I actually started to look forward to speaking opportunities. I found myself volunteering for presentations and leadership opportunities, and even enjoying them. I learned to see them not as threats, but as chances to connect and grow. Because trust me, even when I was anxious and even when I was scared of these presentations, there was still this part of me that was like, "Oh, I wish I could do it. I still want to do it because I'm missing out on all of this. Like, I wish I could do better." But every time the opportunity presented itself, I would try my best to avoid it. I would try my best to like get exempted from a presentation, ask the teacher if I could just like record myself and send it to her specifically so just my teacher could see it and it wouldn't be presented to the whole class. I would try everything in my power just to avoid a presentation. But then deep inside, I would still feel bad about it because like I wanted to do it. I was just too scared. I learned to see them as not as threats but as chances to connect and grow, right? And now hosting this podcast is something I genuinely love doing. It's like having a conversation with all of you, and it's something I never thought I'd build the courage to be able to do without feeling that old familiar fear. So, if you're struggling with social anxiety or the fear of public speaking, I'm here to tell you that change is possible. It takes time and it takes pushing yourself out of your comfort zone little by little, gradually, but you can get there. And remember, every step forward, no matter how small, is progress. Keep at it, and soon you might find yourself in a place you never thought you could reach. Let's dive deeper into dealing with specific types of anxiety, like social anxiety. Like I just shared my personal story, but let's talk about how do you practically deal with it, which is something that so many of us face but don't always talk about. So, what is social anxiety? It is that intense fear or discomfort in social situations. It could be speaking in public, meeting new people, or even just being in a crowd. It's like having a spotlight on you, and every move feels scrutinized. I felt that way too. Like everyone's watching and judging. It's exhausting, right? One approach that can help with social anxiety is something called gradual exposure, which is basically what I did. It's about slowly facing the situations that make you anxious, but doing it in small manageable steps. Starting with imagining the scenario that makes you anxious, like giving a presentation, and visualize it going well. Then take it up a notch. Maybe practice in front of a mirror, then in front of a trusted friend. The idea is to expose yourself to the fear little by little until it starts to lose its power over you. You're teaching your brain that the situation isn't as dangerous as it seems. For social anxiety, it also helps to challenge your negative thoughts. Often, we get stuck in a loop of what ifs. What if I embarrass myself? Or what if they think I'm awkward? Try to counter these thoughts with more balanced ones. Like, I might feel nervous, but that's okay. Or, I don't need to be perfect, I just need to be myself. Writing these down can also help, almost like giving yourself a little pep talk. Now, let's talk about more techniques to manage anxiety and work towards long term relief. So, mindfulness meditation is one that's gained a lot of attention, and for good reason. It's about focusing on the present moment without judgment. You can start small, like just sitting quietly for a few minutes, focusing on your breath, and when your mind wanders, which it will, just gently bring it back. Studies have shown that mindfulness can reduce symptoms of anxiety and even change how our brains react to stress over time. Apps like Headspace or Calm are great places to start if you're new to meditation. This is not sponsored, by the way. Another great tool is keeping a thought journal. This might sound cliche, but it's so powerful, trust me. When you feel anxious, write down what triggered it, what thoughts you had, and how you felt. Then challenge those thoughts. Ask yourself, is there evidence of this belief? Is it possible that I'm catastrophizing or jumping to conclusions? Over time, this can help you see patterns and realize that not all thoughts are facts. If you're looking for more long-term ways to reduce anxiety, think about building a strong support system, whether it's friends, family, or a community group, like maybe like a Discord channel or like a broadcast channel on Instagram or a Discord server, sorry. Having people you trust who understand what you're going through can make a big difference. Sometimes just knowing that you're not alone is enough to help calm your mind. Lastly, consider incorporating mind-body practices like yoga. These aren't just for fitness. They combine movement, meditation, and breathwork, all of which are great for calming the nervous system. They can help you feel more connected to your body, which is a big part of reducing anxiety. Remember, managing anxiety isn't about eliminating it completely. Like, I still fumbled a bit on my words, like just doing this podcast. But it's about learning to navigate it and building resilience and being okay with it. And that takes time, patience, and a lot of self-compassion. You don't have to have it all figured out today. Take it step by step. Take a few weeks, months, even years. Celebrate the small wins and know that you're on the right path. As long as you're making a little bit of progress, you're on the right path. And I also want to hear from you guys. What are some ways you deal with anxiety? What's worked for you? Feel free to send me a message on Instagram or drop a comment wherever you're listening to this. Let's create a space where we can all share and support each other. Before we wrap up, I want to leave you with this. It's okay to feel anxious, I promise. it doesn't mean you're weak or broken. It just means you're human. The important thing is to recognize when anxiety is taking over and to have some tools in your back pocket to manage it. Remember, it's all about progress, not perfection. Some days will be harder than others, and that's okay. You've got this, and you're not alone. Thank you so much for tuning in to today's episode of Mind Unscripted. I hope you find it helpful and maybe even a little comforting. Don't forget to subscribe, leave a comment, and share this episode with anyone you think might benefit from it. And remember, this is just the beginning of our journey together. We're going to tackle so many more topics, and I can't wait to continue this conversation with you all. Take care of yourselves, and I'll catch you in the next episode. Bye for now.